So here we go. Also from Bitcoin News, Coinbase resumes operations after 4 hours. The exchange announced a major system outage that affected the functioning of the platform on both desktop and mobile devices. So, a surprise to nobody at all, Coinbase shuts down. And so it was a good opportunity, I think, though, because I got about 7 things here that I want to talk about in terms of decentralizing ourselves. And we're moving from, like, macro speaking here. We're moving from a very centralized world into a decentralized world. That shift is taking place as we speak right now. And so with that, what's going to happen is that we're going to see a bunch of different things, and we need to kind of replicate that in our own life. And so this is a perfect example of why, you should, first of all, never use Coinbase. That's number one. But second of all, if you are using Coinbase, make sure you have a backup. And so I have 7 things here that I want to talk about in terms of how we can be decentralizing ourselves right now and why. So the first one is obviously your KYC exchanges. So this is exchanges like Coinbase, like ShakePay, any exchange that you sign up for that you have to provide your name, your phone number, your email, a photo ID. Those are all considered KYC exchanges, know your customer. So they're very easy to do. They're very common. There's a lot of them out there. The problem is, though, that when you buy Bitcoin from a KYC exchange, that Bitcoin is going to be tied to you forever. And I mean, there's different thought experiments down that road as well, which I have. And maybe I'll just touch on that quickly, because I really think that people put too much emphasis on the whole KYC/no KYC stuff. And the reason I think that is because if you actually buy Bitcoin, you take self-custody of it, and you do everything right, and then somebody knocks on your door, or somebody calls you and says, you have this Bitcoin, we know you have it. And you can just say, you know what? I don't have it. Honestly, I have it in self-custody, but my dog ate my backup phrase. And there's really no way for them to prove that you still have that. If you do things properly, I mean, if you leave that backup phrase lying around your house for them to find, then that strategy is not going to work as well, right? But if you do things properly and you say that my dog ate my backup phrase, it's gone, I cannot access my Bitcoin, what are they going to do? What can they do? What's their scope there? Go into your brain, hook you up to some sort of machine to extract your 12 words? So that's kind of my theory on the KYC, no KYC stuff. I still think it's very important to try to get as much non-KYC Bitcoin as possible, just so you don't have to go through that whole trouble of your dog eating your backup phrase. So what I would say here is that make sure that you have a few different KYC exchanges. So here in Canada, what I would suggest is setting yourself up on, like, Bull Bitcoin for sure. They're the best ones in Canada. ShakePay, and then Bitcoin Well, which I've never used, but I see that a lot of people are starting to use it. So that's kind of the 3 that I would recommend. And even if you don't, even if you sign up for, let's say that you use ShakePay, you're somebody who buys $100 worth of Bitcoin every month on ShakePay. Very easy to use. It's already connected to you. It's simple. What I would probably do is I would get set up on Bull Bitcoin and just create an account. And so it's there if you need it. That's what you want to do. You want to have as many different tools here in your toolbox when all these different scenarios play out, that you're going to be ready for it, regardless of what it is. So what I would say is, or if you have Bull Bitcoin, get a ShakePay account, vice versa. And if you need a link for either of those two, just get in touch with me. I think that the Bull Bitcoin one is below. If you sign up using that link here in Canada, you get $25, I think, worth of free Bitcoin. So like I said, even if you have no intentions of using it right away, because you have to put yourself in a scenario here where, as I'm going to talk about in the 5th one here, is that if you do, let's say that Bitcoin shot up tomorrow, because I know it's easy just to say in practice that you should be doing this, but let's say that Bitcoin shot up to $250,000 tomorrow. And then in a year from now, it's worth $2 million a coin. And when that's happening, there's always going to be a large segment of people who are trying to buy and a large segment of people who are trying to sell. And so Coinbase, exchanges like Coinbase, when that happens, when there's a lot of traffic, people buying and selling, they usually just shut down. They say it's for maintenance. They give a whole bunch of different reasons, but they usually just shut down. And so if you are somebody who has plans to spend some of your Bitcoin eventually, you want to make sure that when that time comes, when the price is running up, you want to get it at the peak. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have an exchange that you can sell it on, right? And so all of a sudden, it runs up, it's running up and up and up, and you want to cash in some of your Bitcoin for whatever the reason is. And all of a sudden your exchange is down for maintenance. In that moment, you're not going to have time to go to Bull Bitcoin and set up an account and get verified and start buying and selling on there. It's not something that happens in 5 or 10 minutes. So what you can be doing when the price is kind of flatlining here for a while, this is when you start doing these things. So get yourself an account on, and if we're speaking in the US here, get an account on Strike, get an account on River, get an account on a few different exchanges there. And like I said, even if you don't buy Bitcoin right away on there, just have it available in case your number one exchange happens to go down for maintenance when you need them the most, right? And so, like I said, in Canada here, if you want to sign up, you need a referral link. There's some below. If you're in the US, I don't have any referral links there, but I do know some people who do. So usually when you sign up for an exchange, especially a KYC exchange, they usually give you some sort of referral bonus for signing up, whether it's $5, $20, $100. There's usually something there. So make sure that whenever you're signing up for something, you always have some sort of referral link. Otherwise, you're just missing out on free Bitcoin, free money. So there you go. That's the first one, is KYC exchange. Make sure you have at least 2 or 3 of them. And a quick shout out over on Zap.stream. Somebody zapped 420 sats. I'm trying to see who it was, but the name isn't showing up. I tried refreshing it, but it still didn't load. Okay, so I'll wait for that to load, but thank you, whoever that is over in Zap.stream who zapped 420 sats. I very much appreciate that. Okay, so that's the first one, KYC exchange. Get a couple of them. Second one here. King says, got to teach my dog to talk so he can remind me of my 12 words. People are going to start getting creative on how they store their 12 words. Oh, there we go. Craig, it was Craig. He said that was me, zapped from a mint for the first time. That's probably why. Maybe there is no actual name connected to that account then. Thank you, Craig. Craig's been buzzing. What an asset to have in the Living in the Future community that we have here. Holy. Very knowledgeable guy. And he's helping some people start running a node, their own node on Sparrow, connected to their cold card. And he's also in the process of setting up a mint. So there's some very incredible and knowledgeable people over on Living in the Future. And I think once you hear what we're going to be talking about today on there, if you're not on there yet, you might be. Adrian Lee says, everything the state says is a lie, and everything it has stolen. From Frederick Nietzsche. It's very true. Because if you think about it, the state doesn't really have any operations. They don't sell hats. They don't sell oil. They just steal everything. They tax everything. Everything that they have has been stolen from somebody. And the good news is a new world is coming. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Keep that in mind. And this is a good question from Daniel over in Zap.stream. He says, is it really worth spending the extra money on non-KYC? You can change your Bitcoin so easily now. I agree. It's really up to you. I honestly think this is my answer to that would be, I think it's good to have a bit of everything. And that's kind of the point of this conversation today, is that you do want to have some non-KYC Bitcoin. You want to have some, well, okay, I'll just leave it there. We're going to talk through this whole thing. So the second one here is non-KYC exchanges. So very similar to the KYC exchanges, get yourself set up on a few different non-KYC exchanges. And one you can do is Bitcoin Well here in Canada. There's been a few people sign up for that in the last couple of days, where you sign up an account as an account, you go to an ATM, you get a voucher, and then I think you can buy Bitcoin with that. One of the two, or maybe you get it online, you take the voucher to the ATM, and then you can do it through there. I'm not sure. But that's one of the non-KYC exchanges here in Canada. There's also Bisq, which is a good one. There's also HODL HODL. There's also RoboSats. There's a few different things. And another underrated one here, I think, that is going to get some use in the future is your own little community. So a perfect example of this is the Living in the Future community. So if I want to buy some Bitcoin and somebody in the community wants to sell some Bitcoin, that's a good way to get some non-KYC Bitcoin, right? So you send them an e-transfer, you send them a PayPal amount, they send you Bitcoin. Nobody knows it was for Bitcoin. Nobody knows the Bitcoin went to you. So set yourself up on a few different non-KYC exchanges. Now is the time to be doing that. Just create an account, play around with it a little bit, maybe buy like $100 worth of Bitcoin on there, and just be familiar with that process, just in case. Crypto Ethan says, I love how paranoid Bitcoiners are. Don't get me wrong, it's great to be prepared for anything, but I feel a lot of people get lost in the weeds of imaginary horribles, and it scares away some normies. Couldn't agree more with that. But at the same time, you have to be. So a lot of the stuff we do, and I think that a lot of the practices we talk about and different techniques, I think we'll probably look back on one day and just say like kind of overkill. But at the same time, we really have no idea. And when you have no idea and there's that much uncertainty, you have to lean on that side of caution, in my opinion. Look at this comment. VT, thank you, my friend. Says, keep up the great work. I'm learning a lot from you. Appreciate that. And Daniel says, don't sleep on Superback. That's a great way to securely store your seeds or any secret. And that is something we're going to be talking about. I think Craig's pretty deep into that as well. So Superback is something that we're going to be talking about more and more, I think, on this channel. I'm not into it yet, but I'm going to be. So that's number 2 is non-KYC exchanges. Get yourself set up on a few of them. And I mean, even if you go to the extent of if you don't want to go fully crazy with this, get set up on like 2 KYC exchanges and maybe 1 non-KYC exchange. You don't have to overdo it, but at the same time, you do want to have a few things in place just in case. So the third one here is device. It's never a bad idea to have a couple devices around. And we're still kind of at the point where they're very easily accessible. They're very inexpensive. I mean, you can get 2 cold cards for what? $400? And if you're somebody who has a significant amount of Bitcoin, I think that that's a pretty good investment for you. So get a couple different devices. You know, you could get the cold card, you could get a passport, you could get a Blockstream Jade. Get a couple of them and decentralize your Bitcoin, because the last thing you want to do here is have, you know, even if you believe in the cold card, even if you believe that that's the best device, the most secure device, if you go through all the trouble and get a device, put all of your Bitcoin on there, set up a passphrase, set up a decoy wallet, and 98% of your Bitcoin's all in this cold card, and all of a sudden, you know, something happens to it, whether you get hacked, whether you forget it, whether your dog eats your backup phrase, you never want to have all of your eggs in one basket. And that applies to everything, including your Bitcoin device. So consider getting a couple different devices, consider spreading out your Bitcoin between the devices, and keep them in different ways. Have a 24-word, have a 12-word, maybe have a Moon wallet, maybe have a cold card that's on a steel plate buried in the yard somewhere. Just think about this stuff, because you always want to eliminate your single point of failure. That's your number 1 with all this. That's kind of the theme here, is that you want to eliminate your single point of failure. The next one here is wallets. So this ties into the devices as well. You want to have a few different wallets. You want to have a couple different receive addresses, different addresses that you're storing your Bitcoin on, because you have to think about this in as if you were already in the future. And that's why I think this whole mindset of living in the future is so important, because let's say that you have all of your Bitcoin on one address, one device, and it's all there. And then all of a sudden you want to go spend some of it in 10 years from now when the price of Bitcoin is $10 million each. You want to spend some of your Bitcoin. So you have to move it out of that wallet to somebody. And from there, you're going to have to move it to somebody else. Or in that process, the thing about Bitcoin layer 1 is that if you send somebody Bitcoin, they can see the address that it came from. They can copy that address, they can paste it into mempool.space, and they can see how much Bitcoin you have. So although they can't access it, they can't move any of it, they can't steal it from you, they can see how much of a balance you have. And let's say that Bitcoin is worth $10 million one day, and you want to buy a new quad for 10,000 sats. All of a sudden, you have to move that 10,000 sats out of your main stack with, let's say it has 1 Bitcoin in it. And the person who bought that quad, who you bought that quad from, now knows that you have 1 Bitcoin. So you're just essentially destroying your privacy. You're essentially putting a huge target on your back. So what I would say is just get you can go pretty extreme with this, or you can just get a couple. But me personally, I have a bunch of different wallets. And there's a few reasons for that. Privacy is one, but just in case something happens to one wallet's compromised, I don't want that to be my end all be all. I never want, to have so much Bitcoin in one wallet that if something were to happen to that, I would be done for. So set up a few different wallets, set up a few different receive addresses, put them in different Sparrow, Moon, Phoenix, decentralize yourself. Eliminate the single point of failure. The next one here, and I mean, this is just kind of me talking on my soapbox here. What does this mean? Robert Charles M. the Fourth. Agorism is the future. What the fuck is agorism? Sounds like a medical disease. Aneurysm. Okay, I'm going to look this up because I don't know if Robert Charles is still in the house or not. Agorism. Agorism is a free market anarchist political philosophy founded by Samuel Edward Konkin III that has the ultimate goal of bringing about a society in which all relations between people are voluntary exchanges of free market. There you go. I agree with that. Never heard that term before, but learned some today. There we go. Okay, we got a couple different comments over here on zap.stream. Daniel says, if you're going to use a steel plate, consider the seed XOR. Oh, that's from CoinKite. I was going to say the one that I have is the seed plate. Oh, I don't know what this is. Is that what the seed plate is? The seed XOR? I don't know. Is that the fancy word for it? Must be. Anyways, I agree. I think that if you have any significant sort of Bitcoin, never keep it on anything digital. Never keep it on your computer. Never keep it on your phone. Always make sure you have it on paper first. But from there, get it on steel, because it's so easy for paper to be destroyed, lost, burnt, water damage, eaten by your dog. Always make sure that you have your backup phrase on steel. What did Craig send here? This is a reason why you want to be on zap.stream, because you can actually share links. And I can't share this on YouTube. But this is, let's see if I can bring this up. This is a link that Craig just shared over on Zap.stream. This is from Spectre Solutions, and it is Liquid for Bitcoiners, Confidential Transactions. So I actually didn't have this on my list for decentralizing yourself, but at the same time, that's a great point. Like, keep some of your Bitcoin on layer 1, keep some of your Bitcoin on Lightning, set up like a Phoenix wallet, Wallet of Satoshi, Mutiny wallet, have some Bitcoin on Lightning, have some Bitcoin on Liquid. Check out that resource that Craig just shared there. It's called spectre.solutions. And I think you can go to, where would this be? Documents, maybe? Blog? I don't know. Anyways, learn how to use Liquid. And also keep some on eCash. So there's 4 things right there. Layer 1, Lightning, Liquid, eCash. And I mean, this isn't, this is probably going to piss some people off, honestly, but at the same time, also consider getting some Litecoin. And obviously everybody knows who watches the show that I'm a very, I don't think I'd be considered a Bitcoin maximalist, but I am. I mean, I think that Bitcoin is the one, it's the king. It's going to be the future financial system. But at the same time, we're going to be using these different things. You're going to need these different things. And I think the Litecoin is actually going to be one of them that is accepted in different countries around the world for the same reason of Lightning and Liquid. It's the same kind of thing. Obviously, it's not Bitcoin, but at the same time, take a 0.5% of your portfolio and just buy a couple Litecoin. Keep it on a Litecoin wallet. And, you never know what's going to happen. Maybe Litecoin is the one that explodes in the next 5 years. And all of a sudden your $100 Litecoin turns into $20,000 Litecoin. And then you can just spend that as needed on different things. Because I think that we're very naive to think that Bitcoin is going to be the only one that people want, the only one that people accept, the only one that people are transacting with. I don't think that that's the case. I think that there's going to be a lot of different cryptos that are used. I wouldn't dabble into any of them unless you just want to gamble with it. But at the same time, I do think that having some Litecoin is not a bad idea. I wouldn't sell any Bitcoin for Litecoin, but if you have other cryptos, or if you have like something you have to sell and get, you have some cash, just buy a couple Litecoin. Jose says he's not a fan of Litecoin. How come? Obviously, I love, Bitcoin's number one. I think that there really is no second best to Bitcoin. But at the same time, the more you can decentralize yourself, the better. So that's, where I was going with this next one here is passports. And like I said, this is more just like if you have the resources for it. I don't. If I had the resources for it right now, I would have a passport in Canada. I would have a passport in El Salvador. I would have a passport in Puerto Rico. If you're somebody who can afford to have a couple different passports and give you that flexibility to decentralize yourself and just be ready for almost anything, that's what I would do. And like I said, this is a do as I say, not as I do. I don't have different passports. I wish that I could. But if you are somebody in a position where you can, I would strongly consider getting a couple different passports. So there you go. AD question: if you have a bunch of different wallets and move KYC Bitcoin through them, isn't that enough to have it not traced back to you? No, I mean, they'll just follow the trail. The thing we have to keep in mind here with Bitcoin, especially on layer 1, is that if somebody wants to find your Bitcoin, if somebody wants to find out whether you have the Bitcoin or not in your possession, they can do it. Right? Unless you go through very extreme lengths to try to stop that from happening. If you're just somebody transacting on Bitcoin layer 1, sending it between wallets, they can easily find that it still belongs to you. Where I was going with that is that even though they can prove that you were the last one to have it, they can't actually prove that you have access to it. That's the difference there. They can't prove that you have 12 words in your head. They can't. And, like I said, that's an extreme length, but at the same time, Might come to that. So the other option there, AD, is that, you have some KYC. Maybe you move that off chain into Lightning. Maybe you swap that through the eCash where there's the blind signatures on there, and you send it back to a different Lightning wallet and then send it back to on chain. I think that'd be a harder path for them to follow. But if you're just strictly moving Bitcoin on layer one, they can track that on a day off for them pretty much. So there you go. And Daniel says that's not enough. You have to break the trail. Bitcoin, Lightning, Bitcoin is good, not perfect, but good. Yeah. And so that's what I would recommend. Go from Bitcoin to Lightning to eCash, back to Lightning, and then to Bitcoin. I think that 5 steps there, that should separate it. But at the same time, we're also not at a real good point where you can do that with a bunch of Bitcoin. So that's what I would say on that. Oh, so I figured that there was something else there. So Craig says that seed XOR is a method to use your cold card plus X number of steel plates to divide your seed phrase into multiple steel plates. I got you. So what you would do there is that you would get like 3 steel plates. Let's say you have 24 words. So you'd have a steel plate at your house with 8 words on it. You'd have a steel plate at your grandpa's house with 8 words on it. You'd have a steel plate at the bank or your lawyer's with 8 words on it. And so if somebody found one of those steel plates, there's nothing that they could do with it, right? You'd have to know where all 3 of them are. It's similar to like a multi-signature setup without the devices there. So depending on how things go here, that might be a worthwhile venture to go down. So Adrian says, Andrew at Nomad Capitalist is a good resource for second passports. There you go. AD says, but how do they differentiate between transferring in my own wallet and transferring to someone else for purchase, let's say? Well, like I said, I'm not a technical expert here. The one thing I would say on that is, sorry, I'll leave that up. One thing I would say on that is like your IP address. So if I sent it to you right now, they know that I sent it from this IP address connected to the wallet to you, your IP address. And like I said, I don't know how they do that or if they do it. I'm guessing they can though. So if I were to send it from my IP address to a different receive address at this IP address, too many addresses here, they could see that it didn't really move anywhere. It stayed here. That's kind of how I see it. And I could be wrong. The nice thing about me is I think that I just assume the worst for everything. And I assume that whoever wants to do something can do it. I'm not smart enough to know how to do it or how to figure out if they can do it or not. I just assume that they can. So that's what I would say there. Jose says with Lightning, you can basically get privacy somewhat. Okay, so we got through passports. The last one I want to talk about here is assets. And I kind of touched on this a little bit with Litecoin. And what the last thing we'll leave it here today, because we're going to jump over to living in the future right away. I got something pretty cool to announce and talk about on there. But the last one here is assets. So I'm sure most people, I shouldn't say that. For me personally, the majority of my holdings are in Bitcoin. Like I said, I have a few Litecoin. I have a few Theta tokens, they're called, a few different things. I have some other assets in the house I don't really need to talk about, and in different parts of the province here. But the one thing you could do is like prepare for this next year. Prepare to have a lot of spending money with Bitcoin. And we're not obviously going to hit anything crazy, I don't think. But the one thing you need to be preparing for is to spend some of your Bitcoin, because when the price goes up, and I think that if you asked a lot of Bitcoiners who were here last cycle, what their biggest regret is not cashing in some of their Bitcoin. I know the mentality in Bitcoin is that we're going to buy Bitcoin and we're never going to sell the Bitcoin. We're just going to keep holding on to it forever. But I think that that's fairly naive to think for a lot of people anyway. Some people will do that, and I'm not going to tell them what to do. But at the same time, when the price of your Bitcoin goes up, be prepared to allocate a little bit into some different asset classes. And I'm not going to tell you to go buy some stocks or some bonds or put some cash. But whatever you've been wanting to buy, whatever you've been needing to buy, that's what I would do there. So let's say like you've been waiting to fix something in your house. You've been waiting to get a new dishwasher, even a new fridge, whatever that is. Like plan on spending some of your Bitcoin for one, diversify it a little bit. And the other thing I would say there is, like I said, don't spend Bitcoin and buy stocks or keep it in cash or whatever. The one thing you could do, and this is what I do myself, is invest in things that you love. So don't buy assets because you think that you can trade them for more fiat in the future. Buy assets that you actually love. And so for me, an example of that is Scotty Cameron putters. And people watching this might think that that's crazy, but you probably have your own thing that you like collecting or things that interest you. Trade some of that Bitcoin for assets that you love. For me, it's putters. For me, it's golf related things. I just think that, life is very short, and you can hold Bitcoin, you can buy Bitcoin, you can obsess about Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, you want to enjoy yourself. We are here for a very short time. And I think that if you just obsess with getting as much Bitcoin and as much wealth as you can, you're going to miss out on a lot. So, that could be a Scotty Cameron putter. That could be a very rare book that you've been wanting to buy. That could be a golf trip with your dad that you've been wanting to take for the last 10 years. But spend some of your Bitcoin, decentralize yourself in a way that you never want to have all of your assets in Bitcoin and just obsess about holding that Bitcoin forever, because you're going to miss out on life. So that's where I want to end it there, I think, for today. A couple things to catch up on over in Zap.stream. Daniel says, Craig turned me onto a site that does atomic swaps. I don't have the site on hand right now, but you can swap 0.25 Bitcoin at a time from Lightning to Bitcoin. And then Craig chimed in shortly after saying it's bolts.exchange. So I have used Bolt before, and it works pretty good. I was trying to figure out how to get onto Liquid, I think it was. So I was using the Bolt exchange for that. Daniel says, can you run down the bullet points in a list at the end? Yes, I can. And yes, great point from Jason here. Great point from Jason. He says, you got to collect a few trophies along this journey. That's a really good way to look at it. And not trophies in a sense that you're like showing off and you're just going to put things on your mantle, but like enjoy yourself. You've put in the work. If Bitcoin does what we think it's going to do, you've put in the work. You've taken a lot of shit from people to get to this point, and you should be rewarded for that, I think. Oh, it's My Path to Fire. I had to refresh the page over there. Said, so my Path to Fire is up to 100 sats. Thank you, my friend. Says, I need a new car, but prefer to stack sats right now. Me too. And, I have a list of about 5 or 6 things that I need to buy that I don't need to buy, but I want to buy if, things go as we think they're going to go. So I want you to kind of think about that. It's really good to have the mindset of buying Bitcoin and holding on to it forever and earning Bitcoin. But at the same time, you want to have something to look forward to here. So come up with a list of like 3 to 5 things that you need that would make your life better. Not something that you want so you can show it off, or, a new Lamborghini. Even listen to that kid talk about on Jen Seth interview the other day about, what was it, McLaren, $25,000 apartment. That's not the kind of stuff I'm talking about here, but look at things that would actually make your life better. That's what you should be focused on. So, and Daniel says, don't be